Hey guys, day 5 of not smoking, and it's been an interesting couple of days. I've had a couple of sort of tests, I guess. I mean, it's all been a test, but there's been a couple of interesting tests. I found myself sitting across a table from a guy, and usually when I'm with that guy and talking to that guy, usually we're drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes. So for me, there's a connection there with hanging out with him and smoking and drinking coffee. So he was drinking coffee and he was smoking. So I drank the coffee, and what I actually did was I just took some chocolate-coated almonds and just sat there and pigged out on those, because I knew it was the first time I was going to be with that guy without smoking. So as with all this stuff, it seems to be habit. So what I've noticed is when I do something for the first time, so the first time I drove the car without smoking was difficult, but now I've been driving the car for 5 days without smoking, so I don't necessarily connect the car with smoking now, so that's become easy. But what I've noticed is, because it's all habit, the first time I do something that I normally do that involves smoking, so the first time I hung out with that guy without smoking was a little bit difficult, because it was like normally I do. But because I've already decided that the smoking is not an option, that the smoking is not a benefit, and that if I do have one of his cigarettes, and I could have easily said to him, do you mind if I have one of your cigarettes? But because I've already decided that if I do have one, particularly now it's been well, at that time it had been 4 days, but now it's been 5 days, I'm convinced that the nicotine's either gone from my system or almost gone from my system, which means that if I have another one now, it's not gonna give me a buzz, it's not gonna make me feel good, it's not gonna do anything for me while I'm actually smoking it, and as soon as I put it out, my body's gonna want another one to try and feel normal again, that normal, not normal, below normal cycle again. And I don't want to go there, because I think my body's almost got to the point now where no nicotine in it is normal, and I'm feeling normal and I'm feeling okay without the tobacco. So I think knowing that, then when I'm sitting there with him, and I could easily say to him, do you mind if I have one of your cigarettes, and could have easily have smoked one of them, but I didn't want to. So it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. And then the next night, last night, I actually went to a izakaya, sort of like a bar, where everybody was smoking, basically. Not everybody, but it seemed like everybody was smoking. The two ladies that were sitting at the table beside us were smoking quite heavily. So there was cigarettes within, half a metre of me, and being chain smoked, and the air was full of smoke, and so again it was a situation that normally if I was in I'd be smoking too. But really I'm convinced it's habit. I'm absolutely convinced it's habit. A couple of people asked me if I've been doing the nicotine chewing gum. There's a few other options here in Japan too. They also have the electronic cigarette, which I did a video on once before. It's actually electronic cigarette that you don't burn it, of course. It's sort of electric, and it dispenses nicotine to you. But I haven't done that. And there's the nicotine patches, and there's the nicotine chewing gum and that sort of thing. And I haven't been doing that because to me it sort of seems pointless. Like, I can see that the nicotine is part of the problem, of course. I mean, that's why I was doing 30 or 40 a day for 30 years, was there is a degree of addiction to the nicotine. But I'm totally convinced, the last few days, I was convinced before I stopped, I was pretty convinced it was just a habit. And the last 5 days have really proved that to me, that really it's a habit. I'm sure there is some physical thing. I didn't sleep real good the first couple of nights. It's got better now, but I wasn't sleeping really good the first couple of nights. There was a sort of a bit of an uncomfortable physical feeling, but it's not a big, I need tobacco. It's not a big drug withdrawal falling about the place with shakes and shivers going on. It's not like that at all. So my point is that I don't think the chewing gum and the patches and the other stuff, which is just another way of ingesting nicotine, to me didn't seem like a good idea. I want the nicotine out of my body. so that physical aspect, what there is of it, is gone. Because so to me, taking the artificial nicotines or the other nicotine ways of delivery nicotine to my body just didn't seem like a good idea. So I haven't done that. And really, I'm convinced that the only struggle now has been with the habit thing. And I think if we can convince ourselves, because there's that constant little argument, there's basically some bullshit. There's that little demon in me talks absolute bullshit sometimes. And I think when we know for a fact that nicotine cigarettes do not give us a high, they do not make us relaxed, they do not help us concentrate. All it is that when we're addicted to nicotine, or when we're smoking, we've got the habit of smoking cigarettes. When we're not actually physically drawing on a cigarette, there's a little part of us that's distracting us. There's a little part of us that's distracting us from what we're trying to do, which means the only way that we can concentrate without that little distraction is to actually sucking on a cigarette. So it gives the illusion of helping us concentrate, but it's actually not true. What's happening is when we're not smoking, our concentration levels are lower. So what's actually happening is, just to be a normal person, like a non-smoker, we need to be drawing on a cigarette. Same as the relaxation thing. Having trouble relaxing because a little part of us is saying, I need a cigarette. In actual fact, when you smoke the first cigarette of your life, you don't smoke and go, wow, geez, I feel really mellow now. You smoke it and you feel sick. It doesn't mellow you out, doesn't relax you at all. So it's all bullshit. So I think when we know that, when we know that for a fact, because when that little voice inside our head tries to lie to us and say, go to the convenience store and get cigarettes, it'll make you feel better, we need to know that's bullshit. Because it's, as much as logically I know this, the last 5 days has only been a struggle with my mind. It's not a struggle with my body. It's not. It's not a struggle with my body. My body's happy. My body's smelling things that, wow, geez, that's sweet, what's that? Oh, that's those flowers over there. And I'm already, after only 5 days, already food's starting to taste better, and already my lungs are feeling better, and already I feel more confident being close to other people now. I'm not quite as self-conscious about stinking, so all the physical benefits are there. So my body's not a problem. My body's having a ball, my body's very happy with what's going on. It's the mind. It's just the mind, so we need to use our logic to totally understand the real situation about what's going on with the tobacco, that it's not giving us any benefit at all. That's why I made that first video in this series, was to encourage everybody to discuss that there is no advantages to smoking at all. We lie to ourselves about that. It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. If there was actually advantages to doing it, more people would do it. If there was actually advantages to do it, people that stop smoking wouldn't start again. And that's another thing I actually played with that idea myself this week, was, okay, look, I'll stop smoking, and then, that little part of me, oh, panic. Okay, in 2 weeks' time, or in a month's time, when I'm totally clear of it all and I've passed the habit and I've done everything that I normally do with a cigarette, I've done without a cigarette, and I've got it out of my habit, it's not a habit anymore, and it's something that I don't need to do. If I still want to smoke, I can go back to smoking, But I think the only time that people ever give up smoking and then go back to it is if there's a part of them that still believes there's some benefit to it. And I think the people that give up smoking and never go back to it, which is most people who give up never go back to it, and it's because they know there's no benefit. They know that it's only an illusion. They know that they feel better and more energetic and more clear in the head and happier, 24 hours a day on average, happier than when they're smoking. Because when you're smoking, there's that 23 hours a day when you're not actually sucking in a cigarette, where you're not feeling normal. You're not feeling 100%. You're feeling a craving, you're feeling a distraction, you're feeling when can I have my next cigarette, which is just madness. We let ourselves suffer for 23 hours or more a day, 30 cigarettes a day. If it takes you 2 minutes to smoke it, there's maybe an hour a day when you're actually drawing on the cigarette where you feel normal. And there's 23 hours a day where you're not. It's the same as that old joke about hitting your head on a wall is really good, because when you stop, it feels good, you know. And it's sort of like that. It's like we let ourselves suffer for 23 hours a day, so that 1 hour a day we can relieve the suffering and feel good. So it gives us the illusion that we're feeling good, which is just, you know, it's easy for an intelligent person to overcome that argument, isn't it? You know? So, anyway, I think that was everything. There's been lots of things I've been wanting to mention to you guys, because I know that there is a couple of people. First of all, I'm hoping that there is some young non-smokers who will listen to this stuff and go, yeah, maybe smoking my first cigarette's not a good idea, maybe I'll give that a miss. And I'm also hoping that, I don't want to be one of those, I think we've got to really watch ourselves. When I was hanging out with that guy yesterday, I didn't say anything about not smoking, because I think there's nothing worse than someone who's given up smoking who then starts hassling other people about it. But I'm hoping that there might be some other people that will benefit from this, that might just get some glimmer of an idea and go, hey, that's not a bad idea, or, you know, that's true. Although I also assume that there'd be lots of people whose little voice inside their head will all be saying it's total bullshit. Because, I mean, I've been there too, where I've been totally convinced that it's a physical addiction, because it's much easier to justify it to ourselves if we tell our friends, particularly our friends who are non-smokers, or even our friends that are smokers, if we talk about how the physical addiction is stronger than heroin and it's this, that and the other, we feel much better about ourselves, don't we? If we can convince ourselves and the people around us that we're addicted to this really, really strong drug, and we're physically addicted to it, so we can't stop. That's a much easier thing to tell ourselves about ourselves than to accept that it's just a self-discipline issue, isn't it? And I've done it too. You know, I've done it too, where I've justified it, told my friends and family that, you know, I'd love to stop smoking, but it's just got me. You know, it's a DNA thing, it's really got me, and it's really strong, and I just can't physically stop it. It's just too much. Because that's a much easier thing to tell ourselves than to say the truth. And the truth is that, it's just too hard. You know, I don't have the self-discipline to stop. Which is really what it is, guys. It really is. I mean, you know, 30 years, 30, 40, 50 cigarettes a day. So, you know, it was my habit. I was hooked on smoking. But my point is, I don't believe it's a physical thing. It's not a heroin thing. It's not a heroin thing. It's not a lying around on the ground going, oh God, I've got to have my heroin. It's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. I think it's totally mental. I really do. I think the mental thing can be strong. If the battle inside us is really, really strong, I think it can give the impression of being physical. Same as anything else. You know, sometimes it's hard to tell what's mental and what's physical. You know, if we're, you know, lovesick, you know, if we're heartbroken, we've fallen in love with somebody and then we're heartbroken, you can physically feel it, right? And I think that it crosses the line. A lot of emotions and a lot of thinking stuff crosses the line into physical, and it gives the impression that it's physical. But I've noticed the last few days that it's become less and less, because I just don't accept the argument anymore. So when that little voice says, go and get a cigarette, you'll feel better, bullshit. And that was a real struggle the first couple of days, but that argument is getting shorter and shorter and less frequent, because I don't accept it anymore. So when that little voice tries to tell me that if I smoke that cigarette I'll feel better, I'm not accepting that. That's just bullshit. So that argument is becoming less frequent, and it's a shorter argument. It's a short cigarette bullshit. It's become a really brief argument, which means physically that I'm not stressing about it. You know, and I think this is what goes on, guys. I'm pretty sure this is what's happening, is that mentally and emotionally we get so worked up about the tobacco thing that it feels physical. So when I really need a cigarette, well really, where is that? You know, and I think it's the same as when we're heartbroken, you know. I mean, anybody that's been heartbroken knows this, that, you know, when you break up with someone that you really love, you know, when all those songs about heartache and, you know, all that sort of stuff, You know, sometimes you can physically feel it, can't you? And it's not really physical, it's mental, but you can physically feel it, and I think that's what's going on with the tobacco. I don't think it's a physical thing, I think it's a mental thing, but we get so emotional and worked up and frustrated and everything else, and irritated and everything else, that it feels physical. I don't think it is. So anyway, day 5.